It was a quiet afternoon when Alicia Thompson stepped off the bus, her eyes scanning the sprawling hotel ahead. The elegant sign gleamed in the sun, promising luxury and comfort. She was excited. This weekend would be the first vacation she'd had in years, and she couldn't wait to relax. The hotel, situated in a peaceful corner of town, seemed perfect for her short stay. Alicia walked up to the front door, dragging her suitcase behind her. She smiled at the doorman, a middle-aged man who barely acknowledged her. Inside, the lobby was pristine. High ceilings, marble floors, and opulent chandeliers. She approached the front desk, where a young woman sat, typing away on her computer. Alicia smiled, ready to check in. "Hi there, I have a reservation for Alicia Thompson," she said, her voice warm. The clerk, a woman with short bleach blonde hair and sharp eyes, glanced up, scanning Alicia from head to toe. There was an odd, quick flicker in her gaze, but it was gone before Alicia could fully register it. "ID and payment, please," the clerk responded curtly, not bothering to stand. Alicia placed her ID on the counter, along with the credit card she had ready. She could feel the receptionist's eyes on her as she typed something into the system. There was an uncomfortable silence before the clerk's fingers paused on the keyboard. She looked at Alicia, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said, her voice dismissive. "We don't have any rooms available at the moment. You might want to try somewhere else." Alicia blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" "I have a reservation." "I called ahead, and everything was confirmed." The clerk's smile was tight, fake. "I understand, but like I said, there's nothing available right now." She motioned towards the door. "Perhaps another hotel in the area might suit you better." Alicia stood there stunned. The situation didn't make sense. Why was she being treated this way? She thought about arguing, but the look in the receptionist's eyes told her there was more at play here. "Is there a problem with my reservation?" Alicia asked, her tone carefully neutral, trying to keep calm. "No, no problem at all," the clerk replied too quickly. "It's just that, well, we've had an issue with overbooking. That's all." She then turned back to her computer, ignoring Alicia completely. Alicia took a step back, her stomach sinking. There was something wrong here. Something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Just as she was about to turn and leave, the door opened behind her. Alicia turned toward the sound, relief washing over her as she saw a tall figure enter the lobby. Her husband, Marcus Thompson, stepped through the door, his athletic frame making an immediate impact. With his broad shoulders and confident stride, Marcus was the kind of man who turned heads wherever he went. He was a famous professional basketball player, known not only for his skills on the court, but also for his community work and public presence. Alicia's face lit up as she waved to him. "Marcus!" she called out, stepping toward him. Marcus smiled, his expression brightening as he saw her. "Hey, babe," he said, moving toward her. The receptionist, however, wasn't smiling. Her eyes widened when she recognized Marcus, her hand faltering over her keyboard. Alicia noticed it immediately, the sudden change in the atmosphere, the shift from dismissive coldness to apprehension. "Do you know who this is?" Alicia asked, trying to keep her voice calm as she motioned toward her husband. "This is my husband, Marcus Thompson. I just told you I have a reservation." The receptionist's face went pale, her demeanor instantly changing from cold indifference to nervousness. She glanced at Marcus, then quickly back at the computer screen as if she hoped the situation would fix itself. I'm sorry, ma'am," she stammered, her confidence from earlier completely gone. "I didn't know. I thought you were someone else." "Someone else?" Alicia repeated, her eyebrows knitting together. "Who exactly did you think I was?" Well, there's nothing available right now." "I didn't realize you were with him," the clerk said, now fumbling for words. Marcus, sensing the tension, stepped forward. "What's going on here?" "My wife has a reservation, and you're telling her there's no room." The receptionist looked like a deer caught in headlights. She swallowed hard, trying to regain some semblance of professionalism, but it was clear her earlier arrogance had evaporated. She stood up, her face flushed with discomfort, and glanced nervously toward her manager, who had just entered the room. "Maybe you should speak with Mr. Lawson," the clerk said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alicia and Marcus exchanged a glance, unsure of what was happening. Marcus turned to the manager, who was now walking toward the front desk with a look of deep concern. Mr. Lawson, the hotel manager, was a middle-aged man with a neatly trimmed beard and a calm, authoritative air. He stepped up to the desk and immediately addressed Marcus, holding out his hand. "Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson. I'm James Lawson, the manager here. Please accept my apologies for this confusion. Let me assist you with your reservation right away." Alicia folded her arms across her chest. "I don't understand," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "You just told me there were no rooms available. Why was I told to leave?" Mr. Lawson's eyes darted briefly toward the receptionist before meeting Alicia's gaze. "We've had an issue with some overbooking, and unfortunately it looks like we made a mistake with the system. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience." Alicia's gaze hardened. "It's more than just an inconvenience, Mr. Lawson. It's the way I was treated. It felt deliberate." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, sensing the growing tension. "We're here now. Let's just get this sorted out." The manager nodded, but Alicia could see the nervousness behind his polite smile. She wasn't ready to let it go. "Are you telling me that if I wasn't married to a famous athlete, you would have just let me walk out?" she asked sharply. Mr. Lawson hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "No, ma'am. That's not what I meant at all. We would have made sure you were taken care of." "But you didn't," Alicia shot back. "You didn't care. You assumed I didn't belong here." The words stung, and Alicia could see the guilt in Mr. Lawson's eyes as he fumbled for the right response. "I apologize for the misunderstanding, ma'am. I can assure you that we value all of our guests equally. Let me make sure you get the room you reserved." Alicia's anger still simmered beneath the surface, but she nodded stiffly. She wasn't going to let this go, not now, not ever. Marcus, sensing the need to wrap things up, turned to Alicia. "Let's just get to the room, babe. We've been through enough today." "Not yet," Alicia said, her voice firm. "I'm going to make sure no one else is treated this way." Mr. Lawson's eyes widened at her words, and the receptionist turned pale. There was more to this moment than just a mistake. There was something deeper, something Alicia wasn't going to let slide. The room was tense as Alicia stood her ground, refusing to let the incident slide. She could feel Marcus's hand gently rubbing her shoulder, but her resolve didn't waver. "I don't just want a room, Mr. Lawson," Alicia said, her tone deliberate and cold. "I want an explanation. Why was I told there were no rooms available when I had a confirmed reservation? Why was I treated like I didn't belong here?" Marcus looked at the receptionist, who was now visibly sweating, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. The manager, on the other hand, seemed to struggle to find words. "I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding," Mr. Lawson repeated, his voice tight. "Please allow us to make it right. We value all of our guests equally." "Do you, Mr. Lawson?" Alicia pressed. "Because I'm starting to wonder if you really do." She could see the hesitation in his eyes, the way his face flushed. It was obvious that something wasn't right, and Alicia wasn't about to let it go. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted the growing tension. I couldn't help but overhear. The voice belonged to a man standing in the lobby doorway, tall, with a strong presence. It was Marcus's longtime friend, Jake, a fellow athlete and business partner. He had heard rumors about the hotel's past, and had come to see if Alicia and Marcus were treated fairly. Jake approached the front desk, immediately picking up on the charged atmosphere. "I'm not surprised by this. This place has a history of refusing service to people based on their race." Alicia's eyes widened as she looked at Jake, her disbelief clear. "What? Are you serious?" Jake nodded grimly. "Yeah, it's happened before, with a few other athletes I know. This hotel has been known to treat people of color like second-class citizens." Mr. Lawson's face went white as a sheet. He had hoped the situation would de-escalate, but with Jake's presence, it was clear that the truth would come to light. Alicia turned to him sharply. So this wasn't just an overbooking issue, was it? Mr. Lawson's mouth moved, but no words came out. The truth was out there now, and it couldn't be ignored. Mr. Lawson, I think it's time for you to make this right, Alicia said firmly. I'm going to make sure this hotel's policies are scrutinized. You can no longer hide behind your false apologies. Jake stepped forward, his voice low and calm. And we'll make sure the media knows about this too. The receptionist, her face contorted with guilt and fear, looked at Mr. Lawson, who seemed to be deflating under the pressure. It was clear that Alicia's resolve had rattled them. Alicia turned to Marcus, who had been quiet up until now, his arms crossed. Let's go, babe, he said, his voice firm. We don't need this place. But Alicia shook her head. Number, we're staying. This is going to change. Within hours, word had spread. The couple had made their concerns known, and the hotel's discriminatory practices were exposed to the public. Alicia took to social media, posting about her experience with a detailed account of the encounter, her frustration clear in every word. Once again, we're reminded that no matter how far we've come, people like me are still treated as if we don't deserve the same respect as others. This hotel made an attempt to deny me a reservation and treated me like an outsider simply because of the color of my skin. I won't stand for it, and I won't let them get away with it. The post went viral within minutes, catching the attention of civil rights activists, journalists, and people all over the world. As the story gained traction, the hotel's reputation plummeted. The backlash was swift and unforgiving. Alicia's phone rang non-stop, with news outlets requesting interviews and offering to cover her story. The pressure mounted on Mr. Lawson and the hotel's management as they scrambled to handle the fallout. By the next morning, the hotel's social media pages were flooded with angry comments. Negative reviews poured in from customers, promising never to stay at a place that allowed such discrimination. The damage was done. Alicia and Marcus were at the center of a media storm, but they knew they were doing the right thing. The incident wasn't just about them. It was about every person who had been subjected to the same kind of treatment, silently suffering. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Marcus asked Alicia as they sat in their room, the door securely locked behind them. You know there's no going back after this. Alicia looked at her husband, her eyes full of resolve. I'm not turning back, Marcus. This isn't just about us. It's about making sure no one else has to experience what I did. By the following day, the pressure was too much for the hotel to ignore. Mr. Lawson issued a public apology, acknowledging the wrongs that had occurred. We are deeply sorry for the way Ms. Thompson was treated at our hotel, the statement read. This behavior is unacceptable, and we are investigating the incident to ensure it never happens again. We sincerely apologize to Ms. Thompson, her husband, and all of our guests. But Alicia wasn't impressed. She refused to accept the apology without action. She demanded the hotel take concrete steps to address its policies. She wanted diversity and inclusion training for the staff, a public commitment to equal treatment, and an overhaul of their booking system to ensure this kind of discrimination could never happen again. The public pressure didn't relent, and soon after, the hotel announced changes, introducing diversity policies, training programs for their staff, and a formal apology to Alicia. They also offered to cover her stay, which she promptly declined. She didn't want their charity, she wanted accountability. As the weeks went by, Alicia's actions inspired a movement. People from all over the country began speaking out about similar experiences, sharing their stories of discrimination in hotels, restaurants, and other places. Social media became a platform for amplifying voices that had long been silenced. Alicia and Marcus continued their vacation, but they were no longer just a couple enjoying some time away. They had become symbols of resilience and the fight for equality. Alicia was offered interviews, speaking engagements, and even a book deal to tell her story. Her fight was just beginning. But it wasn't the fame or the media attention that mattered to her. What mattered was knowing that, because of her, things could change. Months later, Alicia stood in front of a crowd of supporters at a rally for racial equality. She looked out at the faces in the crowd, so many people who had been hurt, ignored, or discriminated against. People who had felt powerless for too long. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her actions and the responsibility she now carried. "We all deserve respect," she said, her voice steady and strong. "No matter who we are, no matter the color of our skin, we deserve dignity. I won't stop fighting for that, and neither should you." The crowd erupted in applause. Alicia had begun a movement, and it was only just the beginning. As she stepped down from the stage, Marcus was there waiting for her, pride in his eyes. Together they knew their fight wasn't over. They had started something much bigger than themselves, and they weren't going to stop until change had come for everyone.